The benefits of a diverse workforce are numerous, and there are a number of steps that employers can take when recruiting that should both ensure greater diversity and reduce the risk of discrimination complaints arising out of the recruitment process. The Code of Practice, published by the Equality and Human Rights Commission to accompany the Equality Act, is a very useful document with lots of working examples. In our experience, it's not used as often as it should be by employers when they're considering issues around diversity and discrimination, particularly when putting policies in place. We just want to pick out 4 areas to think about: advertising, applications, shortlisting, and interviewing. When advertising a role, the code tells us to avoid using language that discourages appropriately qualified people from applying. For example, don't say that a person must be familiar with a certain type of software if that software is not accessible to some disabled people, but they could use different software to achieve the same outcome. Instead, the advert should state the outcome that the successful candidate should be able to achieve, and not the particular process that the employer uses at that particular time. In terms of applications, ensure that these are available in an accessible format. It's also good practice for personal information to be detachable from the substantive application, so that those shortlisting are doing so without knowledge of protected characteristics such as sex and age of the candidate. Guidance on the shortlisting process states that where possible, more than one person should be involved in the shortlisting process, and that the marking system should be agreed before the applications are assessed. This includes agreeing the cut-off score for shortlisting before starting the marking. Where more than one person is involved, applications should be marked independently before a final mark is agreed between the panel. The interview process is highlighted by the Code of Practice as the stage at which it's easiest to make judgments based on instant, subjective, and sometimes completely irrelevant impressions. Studies are often cited suggesting that an interviewer forms a strong first impression within just the first few seconds of an interview that can then be very difficult to dislodge during the remainder of the interview. Those who carry out interviewing should be trained, therefore, to recognise the risks of early impression forming and unconscious bias. And this is only a brief selection of the recommendations within the code, but is offered as food for thought for employers, especially those currently reviewing their recruitment policies and structures with the aim of improving diversity and reducing the risk of discrimination.